7 minutes ago, Buckingham Palace dropped a bombshell that sent shockwaves not just through the royal family, but across the world. In one swift announcement, the monarchy declared that Lilibet Diana, the youngest daughter of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, was removed from the line of succession. The reason? An alleged citizenship review had uncovered unresolved questions about her birth documentation, a document that, according to palace insiders, had been in question since the very moment she was born. Imagine being a parent, knowing that your child's future, her place in history, is suddenly being questioned. Imagine watching a system you trusted, a family you loved, suddenly turn its scrutiny on the one person you vowed to protect above all else. That is the reality Prince Harry now faces. And the fury in him, sources say, is nothing short of volcanic. Reports indicate he is considering legal action, and whispers of a confrontation with King Charles and Prince William are spreading through the corridors of royal influence like wildfire. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. But before we dive into the layers of this story, the legal battles, the family tension, the unprecedented nature of this move, ask yourself this: how often does a baby, barely a year old, become the center of a legal storm, a political debate, and global scrutiny all at once? Rarely, almost never. And yet, here we are. The announcement itself was delivered with surgical precision. A palace legal team released a carefully worded statement. Lilibet Diana is no longer eligible for her place in the line of succession due to unresolved citizenship issues and questions surrounding her birth documentation. There were no flourishings, no emotional appeals, just the cold, clinical certainty of bureaucracy. But behind those words, the implications are explosive. This is a move that threatens not only the relationship between Harry and his family, but also public perception of the monarchy itself. Harry's reaction, according to sources close to him, was immediate and intense. He reportedly slammed his fist on the table in his California home, pacing back and forth, grappling with a tidal wave of frustration, anger, and helplessness. Every parent has felt the sting of injustice when it affects their child, but this is a different magnitude entirely. This is international scrutiny, legal complexity, and historical significance, all bundled into one devastating announcement. And the public has already started picking sides. Social media exploded within minutes, as memes, commentary, and heated debates began flooding feeds worldwide. Would people blame Harry for overreacting, or the palace for perceived cruelty? Could a child really be caught in the crossfire of royal politics in this way? There are layers to this story that most headlines won't tell you. The citizenship review itself is unprecedented, at least in the modern sense of royal succession. Historically, the line of succession has had its share of complications. Think of Edward VIII's abdication, or the centuries-old religious requirements. But rarely has it involved a child born to a British royal outside the United Kingdom, and rarely has it hinged on citizenship questions of such a young age. The fact that Lilibet Diana is in this situation raises more questions than answers. Was there a deliberate oversight in her documentation? Or is this part of a broader legal strategy by the palace to assert control? Some insiders suggest it might even be a preemptive measure to prevent complications with Commonwealth countries, though no official explanation has clarified this. While the palace statement was careful and measured, Harry's world is anything but. Sources report that he is in constant communication with his legal team, preparing for a challenge that could be as public as it is personal. The tension is palpable. Every moment that passes feels like another tick in a countdown toward confrontation. And the stakes are staggering. If this legal battle moves forward, it could not only affect Lilibet Diana's future, but also set a precedent for how the monarchy handles succession disputes involving dual citizenship, international residency, and questions of documentation. But the personal stakes are perhaps even higher. For Harry, this is not a political chess game. It's about protecting his daughter from an injustice that feels both arbitrary and cruel. There's a sense of betrayal here that the public can feel, even from across the ocean. It is a betrayal not of politics, but of family trust, of parental instinct, of expectations of support and loyalty. And yet, the palace is unwavering in its position. Public reaction has been swift and polarized. In one corner, royal enthusiasts and critics alike are dissecting every word of the announcement, questioning its necessity, its timing, and its legality. In another corner, social media commentary is inflamed with empathy for Harry and Meghan. Viewers and followers are asking, almost collectively, how could they do this to a baby? The emotional weight of that question is enormous. And as the world watches, the narrative continues to evolve, with insiders leaking bits of information, speculation, and even supposed whispers of secret meetings that have yet to be confirmed. Some reports hint that the decision was not made in isolation. Certain palace officials, it seems, have been quietly pushing for clarity regarding the child's citizenship for months, if not years. There's speculation that the timing, so close to recent family disputes, interviews, and media revelations, is intentional. Was this a calculated move to assert authority? Or was it simply the result of bureaucratic diligence meeting unfortunate timing? The truth, as always, is likely more complex than any single headline can capture. And while Harry's fury is front and center, there's also a broader story unfolding. The monarchy itself is navigating a delicate balance between tradition, legal precedent, and public perception. Each decision carries weight, each move is scrutinized, and every misstep can become a global talking point. By removing Lilibet Diana from the line of succession, the palace is not just making a legal statement. They are sending a signal, an assertion of control, a reminder that even the youngest members of the family are subject to scrutiny and compliance. Yet, despite all the tension, one central question remains. What happens next? Harry is reportedly exploring every possible avenue to challenge the decision. Legal experts are weighing in, insiders are whispering, and the public is waiting, holding its breath for the next development. And Lilibet Diana, the child at the center of this storm, remains blissfully unaware of the forces swirling around her, her future hanging in a delicate balance dictated by adults and systems far beyond her understanding. But even as the world processes the initial shock of the announcement, there are rumors of even bigger revelations yet to come. According to insiders, what was just released to the public may only be the tip of the iceberg. There are whispers of additional documentation issues, private family meetings that have yet to be disclosed, and strategic maneuvers that could reshape the royal narrative entirely. And if those whispers are true, the story we've seen so far is only the beginning. So, ask yourself this. How far will Prince Harry go to protect his daughter? How far will the palace go to enforce its rules and maintain its image? And what unseen consequences are waiting to unfold in the weeks and months ahead? The answers are not yet clear, but one thing is certain. The royal family, the media, and the public are about to witness a drama that could redefine the meaning of succession, citizenship, and family loyalty in the modern era. But what came next would change everything. And no one saw it coming. It all began with a notification that landed like a bombshell on the world's most famous family. 7 minutes ago, Buckingham Palace released a statement so precise, so coldly worded, that the reverberations were felt immediately, not just in London, but in California, across the Atlantic, and in every media outlet tracking the royal saga. The message was simple on its face. Lilibet Diana, the infant daughter of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, was removed from the line of succession due to unresolved citizenship issues and questions surrounding her birth documentation. But behind those words, the emotional and political implications were anything but simple. Imagine receiving news like that about your own child. The feeling isn't just shock, it's betrayal, disbelief, and a visceral, almost instinctive rage. And that's exactly what Harry felt the moment he saw the headline flash across his phone. Sources describe him as pacing back and forth in his California home, his fists clenching and unclenching, muttering under his breath, unable to reconcile the fact that a decision about his daughter's future had been made without his consultation, without his consent. This wasn't just a bureaucratic procedure. It was a direct strike at the heart of his family, at the very essence of what it meant to be a parent protecting a child. The palace statement was strategic. It was designed to convey authority, legality, and neutrality. The line of succession for Her Majesty's descendants is subject to legal requirements, including citizenship and documented verification of birth. Lilibet Diana is currently ineligible due to unresolved citizenship and documentation issues, it read. On paper, it sounds factual, measured, even reasonable. But in reality, The statement was a spark that ignited a chain reaction, one that would set the entire royal family on edge. But let's pause for a moment and ask the question on everyone's mind. How can a baby, barely a year old, be removed from the line of succession in 2025? Citizenship questions for a child born to British royalty? Birth documentation in question? The questions themselves seem almost absurd, yet the palace is insistent, and Harry is furious. To understand the full weight of this announcement, you have to understand not just the rules, but the emotional stakes. Historically, succession rules have always been complex. Religion, legitimacy, and gender have all played a part. But rarely, if ever, has a child of a British royal, born outside the United Kingdom, had her eligibility questioned due to citizenship or paperwork issues. And yet here we are. There's speculation that this is the result of meticulous palace diligence, or perhaps something more calculated. Was this timing intentional? Was it a warning shot to Harry? Or a subtle reminder that the monarchy operates on its own terms, no matter who gets hurt in the process? The first few minutes after the announcement were chaos. Reporters scrambled for statements, social media feeds exploded, and royal correspondents were already analyzing every word of the palace statement. Every detail was parsed, every punctuation scrutinized. Citizenship issues, birth documentation questions. Those phrases became the focal points of debates online, on TV, and in print. And all the while, Harry's fury was escalating behind closed doors. He wasn't just angry, he was personally affronted. He knew, as every parent does, that a child's security is sacred. And in this case, he believed that sacred trust had been violated. But it wasn't just anger, there was fear, too. Fear of what this meant for Lilibet's future. Fear of the legal precedents being set. Fear of public perception, because every move Harry made was under a global microscope. Every action, every statement, every emotional reaction would be dissected. And in that moment, Harry's world contracted to a single thought: protecting his daughter. Every other consideration, including family loyalty, palace protocol, and media optics, took a back seat. At the same time, the palace remained calm, composed, and calculated. Inside those centuries-old walls, the legal team prepared for the inevitable fallout. They anticipated the media frenzy, the public outrage, and, most importantly, Harry's response. There's a protocol for everything in the monarchy, even a situation like this. But for Harry, it felt like a personal assault, a bureaucratic strike aimed at undermining his role as a parent and protector. And then there's the global perspective. Across the Commonwealth and beyond, this announcement set off a ripple effect. Countries with ties to the monarchy began questioning what this could mean for their own protocols, for the role of royal family members abroad, and for the symbolic significance of Lilibet Diana's position. Conversations that might have seemed abstract became real, urgent, and heated. People weren't just talking about a baby. They were debating the very principles of monarchy, citizenship, and inheritance in the modern age. Even within the palace, whispers started. Sources indicate that the decision was not made overnight. There were internal discussions, memos exchanged, legal consultations, and perhaps even family disagreements behind the scenes. Some insiders claim that the timing of the announcement, mere days after a series of public statements by Harry and Meghan, was anything but coincidental. Was this a response, a preemptive maneuver, or simply bureaucratic diligence catching up to itself? The palace has offered no comment, leaving room for speculation that could fuel this story for weeks to come. Now, let's talk about the emotional core of this story, Lilibet Diana herself. The child at the center of this storm is innocent, unaware, and completely removed from the machinations swirling around her. And yet, her life is being shaped, in some ways, by decisions she cannot influence, by arguments she cannot comprehend. Every parent watching this unfold feels it. This is not just policy, it is profoundly personal. And for Harry, the emotional weight is unbearable. He sees the potential consequences of the announcement, the legal obstacles, the media scrutiny, and feels the acute sting of injustice. Public opinion is already divided. Some see the palace as upholding necessary protocol, maintaining the integrity of succession rules. Others view the move as unnecessarily harsh, even cruel, targeting a child to assert control over a defiant family member. Social media became a battleground, with hashtags trending, opinion pieces published, and global audiences weighing in. Every news cycle added layers of tension, amplifying Harry's anger and the pressure on the palace to justify its decision. And while the world reacts, Harry's private life is anything but quiet. Sources report meetings with lawyers, strategic discussions with advisors, and hours spent planning the next steps. This isn't just a story about legal eligibility. It's about family dynamics, personal betrayal, and the complex intersection of public and private life. Every decision Harry makes now could have far-reaching consequences, not just for him and Meghan, but for Lilibet Diana and the monarchy as a whole. Even more, this situation raises questions that go beyond law or protocol. How does a modern monarchy navigate the delicate balance between tradition and parental rights? How much influence should a palace legal team wield over the life of a child? And perhaps most importantly, how does a parent fight an institution that has existed for centuries, when that institution's definition of right may conflict with every instinct you have as a mother or father? And yet, despite all the preparation, all the legal advice, and all the public statements, one question hangs over the entire drama like a storm cloud. What happens next? How will Harry respond? Will he challenge the palace? Will he take the battle public? Or will he quietly seek a resolution behind closed doors, hoping to shield his daughter from further scrutiny? Sources suggest there are surprises yet to unfold, hidden documents, private correspondence, and perhaps even previously undisclosed family agreements that could completely change the narrative. And if these come to light, the story will escalate from a shocking announcement to a full-blown royal crisis. So here we are, mere minutes after an announcement that has already shaken the foundations of the monarchy, Harry's home, and the public consciousness. A baby's future is in question, legal experts are weighing possibilities, and the world watches with bated breath. And if you think this is the end of the story, think again. The palace has yet to reveal its next move, Harry has yet to respond fully, and insiders hint that there is much more to this drama than anyone has realized. But what came next would change everything. And no one saw it coming. How can a child barely a year old find herself at the center of a royal and legal storm? How could a simple question of citizenship ripple across continents, shake the monarchy, and push a father to the brink of outrage? These are questions that now define Lilibet Diana's life, a life that should have been innocent, free, and untouched by politics. Yet, for reasons that remain tangled in centuries of tradition and legal technicalities, the youngest daughter of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle is caught in the machinery of royal protocol and national law. It all begins with the concept of succession. To understand why Lilibet's position has become so controversial, we must first unpack the rules that govern the British monarchy. Succession is not merely about birthright. It is about legality, citizenship, religion, and documentation. Historically, succession laws were straightforward, at least in principle. A legitimate child of a reigning monarch would inherit the line of succession according to primogeniture rules. But modern realities complicate everything. When a royal child is born outside the United Kingdom, when they hold dual citizenship, when documentation is inconsistent or delayed, every element becomes a potential barrier. And, in Lilibet Diana's case, that barrier has become a full-blown crisis. The palace statement referenced unresolved citizenship issues and birth documentation questions. These phrases, neutral and almost bureaucratic on the surface, mask a storm of legal, emotional, and political implications. What does it mean for a child to have unresolved citizenship? Could Lilibet actually be considered a foreign national, despite being born to a British prince? And what kind of birth documentation could be in question? These are not just technicalities. They are potential obstacles to the very concept of her royal identity. Sources suggest that the citizenship review was initiated months ago, quietly, and without public fanfare. Perhaps it was routine, perhaps it was precautionary. Yet the timing of the palace announcement, mere minutes ago, after a period of public statements and media speculation from Harry and Meghan, raises eyebrows. Was this a calculated move to assert control, or merely an unfortunate convergence of legal scrutiny and media exposure? The answer, insiders whisper, may be far more strategic than anyone realizes. Let's break this down. Lilibet Diana was born in California, in a hospital outside of the United Kingdom. By American law, she is automatically a U.S. citizen, which is straightforward. But British succession law complicates matters. Under current rules, any person in line for the throne must be a British citizen. If the child is born outside the UK, certain conditions must be met: parental consent, registration of birth, proper documentation, and verification of legal rights. Sources suggest that while most of these steps were followed, one or two items remain unresolved. Whether this is a paperwork oversight, a technicality, or a deliberate misstep is unknown, but it is enough to throw her place in succession into question. And then there is the matter of birth documentation. What exactly is in question? Palace insiders have not been forthcoming with specifics, but speculation abounds. Some suggest that certain forms were submitted late, or that records of the birth were incomplete. Others whisper about potential discrepancies in how the birth certificate lists parentage, nationality, or residence. Even minor inconsistencies can snowball into a major legal debate when dealing with royal succession. And the public? The public sees only the headlines, but those headlines mask a labyrinth of bureaucracy, historical precedents, and international law. This is where Harry's anger becomes fully understandable. To him, this is not about forms or technicalities. This is about protecting his daughter's rights and her future. Every parent knows the instinct to defend their child against injustice, but Harry's situation amplifies this instinct 1,000-fold. He is facing not only a legal challenge, but a moral one. Defending his child against a system that can appear impartial on the surface, but feels deeply personal when it impacts your own family. Adding fuel to the fire, some insiders claim that there may be more to the story than just paperwork. Rumors circulating in media circles suggest the possibility that the palace is using the citizenship review as leverage in broader family disputes. Could this be a power play aimed at Harry and Meghan, a subtle reminder that the monarchy decides who has influence, even over their own children? Or is it simply a procedural check, long overdue, but now exposed to public scrutiny? The truth is likely layered, but the effect is undeniable. Tension, anger, and uncertainty now dominate every aspect of Lilibet's world. The stakes are not hypothetical. If Lilibet remains excluded from the line of succession, her future privileges, titles, and public role are jeopardized. A child who should be celebrated for her lineage may instead be subject to legal debates, political wrangling, and global speculation. In the age of social media, even infants are not spared scrutiny, and Lilibet's every milestone, from birthday celebrations to family photos, becomes fodder for public debate. Let's also consider the precedent. Has the monarchy ever faced a similar scenario? Rarely. While succession disputes have occurred, Edward VIII's abdication, religious barriers in the past, and debates over the rights of overseas-born heirs, the combination of citizenship and documentation questions in a modern royal context is largely unprecedented. That uniqueness magnifies the stakes and underscores why Harry's fury is so visible. What happens here may shape how the monarchy handles succession questions for generations to come. Public reaction has been immediate, polarized, and intense. On one side, commentators argue that the palace is simply enforcing legal and procedural requirements: citizenship, documentation, succession rules. On the other side, supporters of Harry and Meghan see a deeply unfair targeting of a child caught in the middle of adult disputes. Social media exploded with hashtags, opinion pieces, and heated debate. Every news outlet, every royal correspondent, and every commentator weighed in, amplifying the drama and intensifying the pressure on the palace to defend its decision. Meanwhile, behind closed doors, Harry is reportedly exploring every possible avenue. Legal advisors, experts in succession law, and international attorneys are being consulted. He's not just fighting a bureaucratic hurdle. He's preparing for a confrontation that could involve public statements, legal filings, and media strategy. For Harry, this is a parental battle as much as a legal one. Protecting Lilibet Diana is not optional. It is an absolute imperative. And yet, despite all the preparation, there is uncertainty. Legal experts caution that challenges to succession rules are notoriously difficult. Procedures are opaque, heavily codified, and traditionally resistant to change. Harry could win, he could lose, or he could enter a prolonged stalemate that drags on for months. Each option carries risk: emotional, legal, and reputational. And in all scenarios, Lilibet Diana remains at the center, her infancy intersecting with global politics, international law, and centuries of tradition. But the plot thickens. Some insiders claim that there are additional factors the public has yet to learn, documents that could further complicate Lilibet's eligibility, private discussions within the royal family that have yet to be disclosed, and strategic moves designed to protect the monarchy's image. If these come to light, they could transform what seems like a procedural review into a full-blown royal crisis. And Harry? He's bracing for the storm. Sources indicate he has been in constant communication with his closest advisors, drafting legal strategies, and preparing for scenarios he had hoped he would never face. Questions loom large. Will Lilibet regain her place in the line of succession? Could legal intervention succeed against centuries of royal precedent? And what impact will this battle have on the monarchy, on Harry and Meghan's public image, and on the family dynamics within one of the world's most scrutinized households? The answers remain unclear. But what is clear is this: for a child born into royalty, the world has suddenly become a far more complicated and perilous place than anyone could have imagined. As we look at the unfolding drama, one thing is certain: Lilibet Diana's story is just beginning. The citizenship review, the legal questions, and the family tensions are all pieces of a puzzle that no one outside the inner circle has yet fully seen. And as Harry prepares to fight, the palace prepares to defend, and the world watches in fascination and horror, one question rises above all others: what will happen next? And if you think the complexity stops with citizenship, think again. Because what insiders have hinted at, private documents, undisclosed meetings, strategic maneuvers, may be the true reason why this story has escalated so quickly. The surface explanation of paperwork and citizenship might only be a mask, hiding motives that go far deeper, far more personal, and far more explosive than the public can imagine. But what comes next could shatter everything the royal family has taken for granted, and even Harry may not be prepared for the consequences. Imagine a man pacing his living room, every muscle taut with anger, every heartbeat echoing the injustice he feels. This is Prince Harry, hours after the shocking announcement that Lilibet Diana has been removed from the line of succession. Fury, disbelief, and a deep sense of betrayal consume him. For Harry, this is not a political issue. This is personal. This is a parent defending the future of their child against what feels like an unthinkable affront, a system that is supposed to protect her, now questioning her very legitimacy. The announcement, framed in the cold, clinical language of legal procedure, ignited a firestorm inside Harry. He read the words again and again, his mind racing. Unresolved citizenship issues, birth documentation questions, ineligible for her place in the line of succession. Each phrase was a punch, each clause a reminder that even the youngest member of his family was subject to scrutiny by an institution that prioritized protocol over people. And the fury didn't stop at words. Sources say that within minutes, Harry had convened his closest advisors and legal team. The conversation was intense, urgent, and emotional. What could he do to protect Lilibet Diana? How could he challenge a decision that felt so arbitrary, so unjust, yet carried the weight of centuries of tradition? Every scenario was dissected, every legal precedent examined, every possible course of action debated. There was no time for calm reflection, no room for compromise. The child's future hung in the balance. What makes this fury even more understandable is the context of Harry's recent history with the royal family. He had spent years navigating an often tense relationship with Buckingham Palace, from media scrutiny to public criticism. He had attempted to balance personal happiness with public duty, often feeling torn between the two. But this situation is different. It is no longer about him. It is about a child who depends entirely on his protection. It is about his ability to ensure that her rights, privileges, and potential future are safeguarded. And the palace's announcement, however legally justified, felt like a violation of that sacred duty. The emotional fallout was immediate and intense. In his private residence, Harry reportedly alternated between moments of quiet, contemplative despair and bursts of controlled rage. Every detail of the announcement, every phrase in the palace statement, was analyzed for intent. Was this purely legal, or was there a personal element? Was it a neutral procedural decision, or a deliberate act of pressure designed to assert control over him and Meghan. Insiders suggest he leaned toward the latter. The history of tension, the timing of the release, and the carefully crafted language all suggested, at least in Harry's eyes, a deeper, more calculated motive. And what about the rest of the family? Tensions began to ripple outward almost immediately. Prince William and King Charles, sources say, were reportedly briefed on Harry's reaction. There were discussions behind closed doors, both formal and informal, about how to manage the fallout. While the palace maintained a calm, measured public stance, the private communications were fraught with tension. One can only imagine the weight of the conversations. Calm, strategic words exchanged over secure lines, every statement calculated to avoid further escalation, yet unable to fully contain Harry's growing sense of betrayal. But here's the striking paradox. Harry's fury is both personal and strategic. It is personal because a parent instinctively reacts to perceived harm against a child. It is strategic because he knows that in the court of public opinion, in the media landscape, perception can be as powerful as law. Every statement he makes, every step he takes, could influence global perception, shape public sympathy, and perhaps even sway internal palace dynamics. It is an impossible balance, the rage of a father colliding with the cold calculus of an institution. And the stakes are higher than many realize. Lilibet Diana is not just a baby. She is a symbol. Her status, her citizenship, her place in the line of succession, all are scrutinized not just legally, but symbolically. To remove her from succession, even temporarily, sends ripples that affect public perception of the monarchy, its fairness, and its humanity. For Harry, the symbolic weight is inseparable from the personal stakes. Every decision now carries the potential for long-term consequences, not only for his daughter, but for his family relationships and public legacy. Inside the palace, whispers began circulating almost immediately. Staff, advisors, and close observers noted the unusual tension in communications. What was usually orderly and measured had shifted to cautious urgency. There were private memos, discreet phone calls, and behind-the-scenes discussions about how to handle Harry's reaction and manage media coverage. According to insiders, some advisors urged a soft approach, waiting for Harry to calm down before responding. Others suggested a firm stance. Make it clear that legal protocol must be followed, regardless of personal feelings. These competing strategies only intensified the sense of volatility. And while Harry focused on strategy, the emotional impact was equally profound. Sources describe him reflecting on past disputes, on sacrifices made to maintain family harmony, and on the constant balancing act between duty and personal conviction. The anger, frustration, and heartbreak are all amplified because this isn't just an abstract conflict. It's a direct confrontation over his daughter's future, a battle he cannot afford to lose. At the same time, Meghan Markle's role in the situation cannot be overlooked. Though sources suggest she has been in close contact with Harry, providing emotional support and strategic counsel, the dynamic is complex. The palace likely anticipates that Harry and Meghan will act in concert, increasing the challenge of any legal or procedural response. Their united front, though grounded in parental protection, also introduces additional pressure points for the monarchy. How do you contain two individuals who are not only personally invested but also media-savvy, capable of shaping global narratives in real time? Meanwhile, public perception adds another layer of complexity. Within hours of the announcement, social media exploded with speculation, debate, and outrage. Supporters of Harry and Meghan flooded platforms with messages of sympathy and solidarity, emphasizing the apparent unfairness of targeting an infant. Critics argued that the palace is simply enforcing legal requirements, suggesting that citizenship and documentation are not negotiable, even for the youngest family members. The polarized responses created a pressure cooker for the family, amplifying tension and making it nearly impossible to resolve privately. And yet, the legal dimension looms largest. Harry reportedly spent hours with attorneys and advisors, dissecting every aspect of succession law, citizenship requirements, and potential legal remedies. Every document was scrutinized, every precedent examined. Could a challenge succeed? Could the palace be persuaded to reconsider? Could a legal maneuver restore Lilibet Diana's place in succession without igniting a larger family conflict? These are questions that have no simple answers, and every potential outcome carries risk. Even the minutiae of timing is critical. The announcements released just minutes ago created a sense of immediacy, of urgency, that has not yet subsided. The palace may have intended this to be a controlled disclosure, but the global media landscape ensures that information spreads at light speed. Within minutes, the story was being dissected by pundits, commentators, and social media users around the world. Every minute counts, every statement matters, and Harry's response will be analyzed, judged, and scrutinized by millions. And amidst all this, the personal toll cannot be overstated. Sources describe Harry as exhausted, pacing between strategy meetings and moments of reflection, grappling with an emotional weight that few can understand. The instinct to protect his child is constant, unrelenting, and driving every thought, every action. There is a profound sense of injustice, combined with a determination to fight, that underscores the intensity of the situation. But even as Harry prepares for legal and media action, the family fallout spreads further. Tensions between him, Prince William, and King Charles are reportedly escalating behind closed doors. Private communications have become strained, cautious, and calculated, as each party weighs the consequences of the next move. The relationships that bind the family are being tested in ways that are deeply personal, historically significant, and impossible to predict. And so, the question remains, how far will Harry go? How will the palace respond? And what unforeseen consequences lie in wait for a family already navigating decades of public scrutiny and private tension? The answers are unknown, but one thing is clear. The fury, the heartbreak, and the sense of betrayal are only just beginning. Because what came next would not only escalate Harry's rage, it would set in motion events that no one, not even the palace, could fully anticipate. The palace had been silent for hours, letting the initial shockwaves of the announcement wash over the public. But silence, in this case, was strategic. Inside Buckingham Palace, the legal team was working furiously, analyzing every angle of Lilibet Diana's situation, anticipating Harry's next move, and preparing the carefully calibrated statement that would soon hit the press. When they finally spoke, every word was deliberate, precise, and calculated, designed to maintain authority, project control, and preempt any claims of arbitrariness. Their statement was short, factual, and utterly devoid of emotion. The line of succession for Her Majesty's descendants is contingent on verified citizenship and documented birth information. Due to unresolved citizenship questions and pending verification of birth documentation, Lilibet Diana is temporarily ineligible for her position in the line of succession. No flourish, no appeal, just the authority of law and tradition, delivered in the impersonal voice of an institution centuries old. But in those words lay a deeper story, one that the public would not immediately grasp. The legal team was signaling three things simultaneously. First, they were asserting that the monarchy operates according to rules, not sentiment. Second, they were preemptively defending against any legal challenges Harry might mount. And third, they were sending a subtle, unmistakable message to the Duke of Sussex. The palace will not bend for personal pleas, regardless of public outrage. For Harry, the statement was a provocation. To read that a team of lawyers, representing an institution that had been his family for his entire life, could so clinical ly strip his daughter of her future was infuriating. Sources describe him as leaning back in disbelief, rereading the text, and muttering, "How can they do this? How can they do this to her?" Each phrase, each clause, was a spark to the wildfire of his rage. And yet, there was no time for outbursts. Any public reaction would be dissected, analyzed, and weaponized against him in the court of public opinion. The legal team's language, precise as it was, concealed layers of strategy. Their use of the word temporarily was deliberate, signaling flexibility while retaining ultimate control. They acknowledged the unresolved nature of the documentation, subtly placing responsibility on Harry and Meghan to rectify any perceived gaps. At the same time, they reinforced the principle that succession is not negotiable. It is codified, rigid, and above personal grievances. This duality, the combination of rigidity and feigned openness, was classic palace legal strategy: appear fair while maintaining ultimate authority. Inside the palace, the team had anticipated every possible counterargument Harry might raise. They had combed through historical precedent, reviewing every case of succession challenges, citizenship disputes, and disputed documentation. From Edward VIII's abdication crisis to the nuanced adjustments following the succession to the Crown Act of 2013, every example was analyzed for applicability. And when Harry's legal team inevitably attempted to leverage modern international law, the palace had prepared counterpoints: historical sovereignty, national precedent, and the inherent authority of royal protocol. Yet, even with meticulous preparation, the team recognized the fragility of the situation. Public perception was volatile. Every news cycle, every social media post, every commentary piece had the potential to undermine their carefully constructed narrative. One misstep could transform a legal procedural announcement into a public relations disaster. That is why, sources say, they deployed a layered communication strategy: legal precision, media framing, and strategic ambiguity. Ambiguity, in this case, was a weapon. Leave enough unsaid to maintain control while projecting an appearance of fairness. The team also understood that Harry's fury was not just emotional, it was strategic. They knew he could appeal to global opinion, leverage social media, and mobilize support in ways that previous generations could not. This knowledge added pressure. The legal team was not only defending a position, they were defending an institution against a potentially unprecedented form of public scrutiny. Every word they released was calculated to withstand legal, emotional, and media attacks simultaneously. And the intricacies go even deeper. Sources indicate that the team had reviewed every detail of Lilibet's birth documentation, her dual citizenship status, and even the timeline of her birth registration. They anticipated challenges to authenticity, arguments about procedural fairness, and even the potential for leaks from within Harry and Meghan's inner circle. This was not merely reactive work, it was proactive, preemptive, and deeply strategic. Each clause, each phrase of their statement was written to anticipate and neutralize the most likely objections. Despite this precision, the public read only the surface message. Headlines screamed about Lilibet Diana's removal, leaving readers to imagine the worst. Memes, opinion articles, and televised segments dissected every word. And Harry? He saw not just the legal language, but the implied judgment. The suggestion that his daughter, through circumstances beyond her control, was now less than in the eyes of the institution meant to protect her. The fury and heartbreak intensified. Sources describe Harry consulting multiple legal experts simultaneously, discussing how to respond without compromising either his child's privacy or his legal position. Each recommendation was weighed against media fallout, family tension, and the possibility of public sympathy or backlash. For a man already exhausted from decades of scrutiny, the mental load was immense. Every decision carried the weight of history, legal precedent, and personal consequence. The palace, meanwhile, moved methodically. Behind closed doors, the legal team convened with advisors, communication specialists, and senior officials to manage both internal and external narratives. Every briefing, every memo, every press release was scrutinized for tone, phrasing, and potential impact. The goal was clear: maintain authority, project fairness, and preempt any legal or media assault. And then there was the matter of timing. The announcement came at a moment calculated for maximum impact, shortly after Harry and Meghan had engaged in high-profile public appearances and media statements. Some insiders argue this timing was intended to assert control, reminding the Duke of Sussex that the monarchy operates on its own timeline. Others suggest it was a coincidence, a convergence of procedural necessity and media attention. Either way, the timing amplified the drama and intensified Harry's emotional response. The team's statement, while measured, had unintended consequences. It immediately polarized public opinion, creating a narrative battlefield. Supporters of Harry and Meghan saw injustice, a cruel targeting of a child caught in a bureaucratic net. Traditionalists viewed it as an appropriate enforcement of rules. Social media erupted with commentary, debate, and speculation. Every second the story unfolded added pressure, forcing both Harry and the palace to carefully consider the next move. And yet, despite the carefully orchestrated strategy, one element remained uncontrollable: Harry's determination. He is a man who has spent years balancing personal conviction with public responsibility, navigating a complex relationship with an institution that is simultaneously family and monarchy. The palace's legal announcement, no matter how precise, could not extinguish the parental instinct driving his next actions. Protecting Lilibet Diana became his sole focus, and every calculation, every decision, was shaped by that singular objective. As the hours passed, the tension between palace authority and personal determination intensified. Harry's advisors reportedly worked through contingency plans for legal challenges, media responses, and private negotiations. The palace legal team, aware of these possibilities, monitored every potential move, ready to defend their procedural stance. The dynamic had shifted from a simple procedural announcement to a high-stakes confrontation, with both sides preparing for a complex, multi-layered battle. And even as the palace maintained a calm public face, insiders suggested that private frustrations were mounting. Senior officials debated the wisdom of the announcement's timing, the wording of the statement, and the potential for long-term repercussions. Each detail, each decision, could have unforeseen consequences. And while the legal team projected control, the undercurrents of tension were undeniable. Finally, there is the human element, Lilibet Diana herself. Though she remains unaware of the storms swirling around her, her future is entwined with every calculation, every decision, every word spoken. In this case, the legal announcement is not just a technicality. It is a force that could shape her life before she even understands the concept of choice, fairness, or family loyalty. For Harry, every strategy session, every consultation, is about more than precedent or procedure. It is about protecting a child from a system that now feels adversarial. But as precise and calculated as the palace legal team may have been, there is a sense of fragility underlying the situation. Legal battles, public opinion, and family tension are all unpredictable, and insiders whisper that the most explosive details have not yet surfaced. Documents that could shift public perception, private conversations that could redefine family dynamics, and strategic moves that may have far-reaching consequences. The palace may have spoken, but their words have only fueled a firestorm. And Harry, fueled by parental instinct and righteous indignation, is preparing a response that could challenge centuries of tradition, test the limits of the monarchy's authority, and change the course of Lilibet Diana's life forever. What happens next will not just determine the outcome of this procedural dispute. It could redefine the boundaries between family, law, and public perception in the modern monarchy. And one revelation, still hidden from the public, threatens to upend everything the palace thought it had secured. But what comes next will shock even the most seasoned royal observers, and no one is ready for the confrontation that is about to unfold. History has a way of repeating itself, even in institutions as rigid and centuries old as the British monarchy. When you think about succession disputes, citizenship challenges, or questions over royal legitimacy, you might assume these are modern complications, problems born from globalization, dual citizenship, or media scrutiny. But the truth is, the royal family has been wrestling with similar controversies for generations, often with consequences that reshaped not just the monarchy, but the entire political landscape of the United Kingdom. And now, in 2025, Lilibet Diana finds herself at the center of one such historical echo, a crisis that seems unprecedented yet is in many ways part of a long, recurring pattern. To understand the gravity of the current situation, we need to examine the past. Consider the abdication crisis of 1936. Edward VIII's decision to relinquish the throne to Mary Wallace Simpson, an American divorcee, was far more than a personal choice. It triggered a constitutional, religious, and public scandal. The monarchy had to navigate the legal and ceremonial implications of a king stepping down, while simultaneously maintaining public confidence in the institution. While the details are vastly different, the parallels are striking. Just as Edward's personal choices were scrutinized and debated, Lilibet Diana's very existence and eligibility are now being analyzed through the unforgiving lens of tradition, law, and public opinion. Another example comes from the 20th century, when questions of religion and legitimacy affected succession. Royal children were not automatically entitled to the throne if they were raised outside of the Church of England or if their parents married against the wishes of the monarchy. These rules were not abstract. They had real consequences for who could ascend, who could marry whom, and how dynastic continuity was managed. In Lilibet's case, citizenship may be the modern equivalent of those religious or legitimacy rules, technical, legal, and emotionally charged, with far-reaching implications for a child who should otherwise be innocent of such disputes. And yet, there is a key difference. Previous disputes often involved adults, capable of negotiating, appealing, or making personal choices. Lilibet Diana is a baby, an infant with no ability to influence the world around her. The fact that such an innocent life is now subject to scrutiny, legal debate, and family tension is unprecedented. It is a stark reminder of the human cost of royal bureaucracy. While historians may debate the nuances of Edward VIII or other succession controversies, few have faced a scenario where a child's eligibility is questioned purely due to technicalities in paperwork and citizenship. The modern monarchy, of course, operates under a vastly different media and social context than past generations. In the 1930s, or even the 1950s, information traveled slowly, public reaction was mediated by newspapers and radio broadcasts, and family disputes could remain largely private. Today, a palace statement goes viral in minutes. Social media magnifies every reaction, and global audiences weigh in simultaneously. Lilibet Diana's situation is therefore not just a legal or procedural dispute. It is a public drama, unfolding in real time before millions of observers, each of whom forms their own judgments and interpretations. But even with the added scrutiny of the 21st century, the monarchy's historical precedents offer both guidance and caution. Consider the children of Princess Margaret, who were born with complex family dynamics and public attention. While they were not subject to formal succession disputes, the tension surrounding royal expectations, inheritance, and public image echoes today. Or take the case of Princess Anne's children, who navigated family pressures, royal protocols, and media attention in ways that tested both private relationships and public perception. Each precedent shows that royal children, regardless of age, are often caught in the crossfire of expectation, law, and institutional priorities. And then there is the issue of international law and dual citizenship, a complication largely absent in earlier centuries. Lilibet Diana, born in the United States to a British prince and an American citizen, occupies a space between two worlds. Historically, royal succession relied on simple lines of legitimacy and residency. Today, global mobility and dual nationality complicate matters. Legal experts note that citizenship status is no longer a mere technicality. It directly affects eligibility under the Succession to the Crown Act, requiring verification of nationality for children born outside the UK. In this sense, Lilibet's situation is a uniquely modern dilemma, reflecting the challenges of applying centuries-old rules to a globalized royal family. Yet despite these complexities, the parallels to historical disputes remain striking. The monarchy has always been forced to navigate the tension between law and personal circumstance. Edward VIII's abdication, the succession complications of religious restrictions, and even the minor disputes over legitimacy among lesser-known royals all demonstrate that rules and human emotion are often at odds. Harry's fury, Meghan's concern, and the palace's strategic positioning are not anomalies. They are echoes of centuries of royal conflict, played out in a contemporary setting. But history also shows that these conflicts have long-term consequences. Edward VIII's abdication reshaped the line of succession, strengthened the monarchy's institutional authority, and forever altered public perception of royal power. Similarly, the outcome of Lilibet Diana's citizenship review could have ripple effects that extend far beyond a single family dispute. It could redefine legal expectations for overseas-born royals, influence public perception of fairness, and set precedents for how the monarchy navigates the intersection of tradition and modernity. And while Harry may feel that the rules are being applied unfairly, historical precedent suggests that challenging institutional decisions is never simple. The monarchy operates on centuries of law, precedent, and carefully maintained tradition. Even if a legal loophole exists, the palace's ability to defend itself, leverage protocol, and manage public perception is formidable. The odds are steep, the consequences high, and the emotional stakes intensely personal. Harry's fury, therefore, is not just a reaction. It is a reflection of a historical pattern. Parents, heirs, and royals have always grappled with the tension between personal loyalty and institutional authority. Every generation experiences its own crisis, its own moral and emotional tests, and its own public scrutiny. And now, Lilibet Diana is the newest participant in this long, often painful continuum of royal conflict. Yet, there is something profoundly modern about this particular dispute. No historical precedent fully captures the combination of media intensity, global attention, legal nuance, and personal stakes that surround Lilibet. Every move is documented, every reaction analyzed, and every statement amplified. Unlike Edward VIII or Princess Margaret's children, Harry and Meghan face a world in which their decisions, emotions, and strategies are public property. Every public outburst, every legal filing, every media interview is scrutinized, creating pressure that historical figures could not have imagined. The tension between historical precedent and contemporary reality creates a unique challenge. On one hand, the monarchy relies on centuries of law and tradition to assert authority. On the other hand, the expectations of modern parenting, public accountability, and media scrutiny create new dynamics that previous generations never faced. Lilibet Diana, though innocent, is at the intersection of these forces, embodying both the continuity of tradition and the disruptive pressures of the modern world. And as we consider this historical context, one point becomes clear. This is not merely a dispute about paperwork or citizenship. It is a collision of generations, a clash of personal loyalty and institutional authority, and a test of how the monarchy adapts to the modern era. Harry's fury is understandable not just as a parent, but as someone who has witnessed firsthand the challenges of balancing family, public expectation, and personal conviction. Yet, the past also warns of the difficulty in changing outcomes. Historical precedents show that even the most passionate objections can be tempered, negotiated, or overridden by legal authority and institutional power. The palace legal team knows this, Harry knows this, and both are calculating their next moves, aware that the decisions they make now will echo for decades to come. So what does history teach us about Lilibet Diana's predicament? That royal children, even infants, are never fully shielded from the mechanisms of authority. That parental fury, while natural, must navigate centuries of precedent and protocol. And that every crisis, every legal dispute, and every family conflict has the potential to reshape not just individual lives, but the very structure of the monarchy itself. And if you think the historical lessons end there, think again. Because insiders hint that there are details in Lilibet's case, documents, discussions, and strategic maneuvers that have no historical parallel. What is unfolding now may be unprecedented even by royal standards, a modern twist on centuries-old conflicts that could redefine the very meaning of succession, citizenship, and parental protection in the royal family. But what comes next will not just test Harry's fury or the palace's authority. It could alter the course of the monarchy in ways no historian, no legal expert, and no observer could have predicted. The moment the announcement about Lilibet Diana's removal from the line of succession hit the press, the world exploded. Within minutes, headlines around the globe were filled with variations of the same shocking news. Buckingham Palace had declared that an infant, barely a year old, was no longer eligible to inherit the throne due to unresolved citizenship issues and birth documentation questions. The statement itself, cold and legalistic, ignited an inferno of reactions, speculation, and controversy that rapidly transcended borders, media platforms, and social media feeds. The first wave came from traditional news outlets. London newspapers rushed to analyze every phrase in the palace statement, dissecting the legal language and attempting to understand the implications. Headlines ranged from neutral, "Palace clarifies succession status of Lilibet Diana," to sensationalized, "Royal baby stripped of succession rights, fury ensues." Each story added layers to the narrative, framing Lilibet Diana as both a victim of bureaucracy and a focal point of royal power struggles. Across the Atlantic, American media coverage took on a distinctly different tone. The outlets emphasized the human element, a father's fury, a child's innocence, and the perceived cruelty of questioning an infant's future. Commentators debated whether the monarchy's focus on procedure over compassion represented an outdated institution struggling to remain relevant. Television networks ran continuous segments, bringing in royal experts, legal analysts, and cultural commentators to debate the fairness and precedent of the decision. The discussion wasn't just legal, it was moral, ethical, and emotional. And then came the social media storm. Within moments of the announcement, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook were flooded with commentary, memes, and hot takes. The hashtag #LilibetDiana quickly began trending worldwide, with millions of users sharing their reactions. Some posts expressed outrage at what they perceived as the palace's heavy-handedness. A baby has citizenship questions? How is this fair? Others defended the monarchy, arguing that succession rules exist for a reason. It's not cruelty, it's law. Royal babies must meet legal requirements. The polarized reactions added a new layer of pressure on both Harry and the palace. One of the most dramatic aspects of the media storm was the speed at which information spread. What might have taken days or weeks to circulate in previous decades now became instantaneous. In the first hour, every nuance of the palace statement was analyzed, dissected, and debated.